Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. We want to help you become a church communications expert. We understand it's a challenging and ever-changing role because we worked in the church too, which is why we built a community of over 30,000 church leaders that are ready to support and cheer you on. Your hosts for the show are Katie Allred, Kenny Jahng, with special guest host from the Church Communications team. They're here to help you and equip you to better reach your community. We'll talk shop with practitioners, professionals, and communications experts about what's working, what's not, and what's next.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Church Communications Podcast. My name is Abby McCulley. I am the Director of Events and Membership over here at Church Communications. And before we dive into our episode today, I just want to say, if we haven't connected yet, I would love to meet you. I would love for you to hop over in the Facebook group and let's get to know each other. That really is my favorite part of my job. I get to meet so many amazing people who are doing such amazing work to help spread the gospel. And today I am joined by one of these cool new friends, Drew Jahng. Drew, thank you so much for being with me today.
Hey, so good to be here, Abby.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. So today you and I were going to be talking about prayer initiatives. I'm super excited. But before we dive in, I want to get to know you. I want our listeners to have a chance to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Gosh, it's been so interesting. COVID really shaped my role in a really significant way. I am supporting all the digital strategy for our church, Christ the King, up in Bellingham, Washington. It's really neat. One of the coolest things is I actually live in Phoenix, Arizona now. I am working remote, which is something that's a totally new possibility in the church. So really, really cool. But over COVID, my job changed significantly. I was supporting a lot of our print initiatives, right? So bulletins, graphics, a lot of the stuff we'd print on a week-to-week basis. And it was a big part of my job. And then when COVID happened, obviously everything turned upside down and everything went digital. And I got kind of thrown into this world of live streaming and website and all of the things that really mattered to keep people connected in that season. And so that's really become my primary role now is doing digital strategy. How do we reach people with the gospel online? How do we reach them through social media, through website, through YouTube, live streaming, you name it? There's a whole variety of digital initiatives we've taken to make people feel like they're connected. And that's kind of my primary responsibility now.
Okay, so that's super interesting. So you were in Washington pre-COVID working on site, and then you moved to Arizona, and now you work completely remote.
Yeah, and I could have never expected it. It's a total God thing. I couldn't handle the rain. For those of you that live in the PNW, you will know it rains all the time. And I just missed the sunshine. I had lived in Arizona before, missed the sunshine and the heat too much. And so it was really sad at first. I was like, guys, I love this church. I love my role, but I need some sunshine. And they said, that's okay. Would you stay on and work remotely with us? And so it's such a cool opportunity.
Wow. Okay. That is very interesting. And I've met a couple of people and talked to a few people who are working remotely in churches. So actually, before we sort of dive into what we're talking about, I'm just wondering if you have a piece of advice for someone who is maybe stepping into a role like that, or maybe what's some unique challenge that you have figured out a creative solution for, just because I think this is a very new thing that churches are doing.
Totally.
And I think some of our listeners are probably in this, maybe they want to try to pursue this. Maybe they don't know how their church would feel about it. So I don't know. What would you say to someone?
Gosh, I mean, when we started, we had no idea what we were doing. I was the first remote. I was the first remote person ever on staff, and it was unique, and it was challenging at times. I think we had to figure out how to build that infrastructure, mostly to feel connected. The biggest thing is that constant communication. Every day we're having multiple check-ins. Hey, how are things going? How can I support you? What do you need? Just that constant high level of communication has been so helpful. I have felt so seen, and I don't feel like I work remote. I'm so connected with our teams that it really, the joke is they call me Robot Drew now. It's kind of funny because I'm on screen all the time, but everybody has said they really don't feel like I'm remote. We've stayed connected in such a way that it really doesn't feel a whole lot different. And so Yeah, that would be my advice, is just keeping those lines of communication open is so helpful.
Well, I think that's awesome. And I think it's a testament to the work that you guys are doing digitally in church. If your team can still feel connected digitally, I feel like that serves your church really well in connecting people digitally too. So
Yep.
I do want to hear a little bit more about your church. So it's in Washington. I'm curious what your like demographic makeup is, like what size church it is, what is your attendance online versus in person, just some background about your church, Christ the King.
Yeah, for sure. We are in Bellingham, Washington, about 20 minutes from the border of Canada. So we are right up next to Vancouver. We get a lot of, pre-COVID at least, we had a lot of Canadian traffic coming over. So a lot of, people from Vancouver that would come down. Um, Demographic wise, I mean, if you know anything about the PNW, it's very unchurched typically. So a lot of people who would say that they are spiritual, but maybe not religious.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are one of the few kind of large churches in Whatcom County, in our little corner of Washington. We run about 2,000. We have 6 campuses, so we're a network of 6 campuses.
Okay, gotcha.
So we are kind of uniquely in 6 little local communities in our corner of the county, but our main campus runs about 2,000, and then we probably have about 2,000 online as well. So pretty good size.
No, definitely. That's awesome. Cool. I just wanted a little bit of a picture of what we're going to be talking about today to get to know you guys and get to know your church, because I know that you do a monthly prayer initiative,
Mhm.
which is what we're going to be kind of digging into today. And I'm super curious to hear about how that works. And I'm wondering how you guys came up with that idea and what that process was like to try to figure out, okay, we have this great idea. How do we actually make it happen?
Yeah, prayer has been in so many different forms. Prayer has been part of the DNA of our church.
Mhm.
We always say we wouldn't be here if it weren't for prayer, right? There have been so many seasons in the history of Christ the King that without prayer and God's faithfulness, like I don't know if we would have made it. And God has come through every time. And so the emphasis on prayer is never missed at CTK. And so when COVID happened in particular, and the church kind of scattered,
Mhm.
the heartbeat was, how do we engage people together in prayer wherever they are? How do we cover our whole, and this isn't just praying for our church, like not selfish prayers, like how do we support and pray for our community, for
Mhm.
our world, for what's going on? I mean, 2020, 2021, we saw some of the most significant events in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Um, and so the heartbeat was, how do we rally around and pray together, even though we're apart?
Mhm.
And so that's what launched the Day to Pray initiative, which is now supported by multiple churches in our county. We've actually brought multiple churches into this initiative, which has been really, really sweet to see the broader church coming together. But basically, we're covering 24 hours. Every church that's part of the initiative has one day a month, and we cover that 24 hours in prayer. People sign up for a time slot, and that their 30 minutes, they have a list of things they're praying for our city and our country, and we've covered every 30 minutes of that day in prayer.
Wow. That is so cool. I've seen a lot of churches do this before, but this seems like a really unique spin on it, especially since you guys are involving other churches in your area, which I love.
Yeah, and that wasn't the original goal. I mean, originally it started with us, and as we're connected to a local prayer center who said, "Hey, we really love this. Can we partner with you and help get this to other churches in our area?" And so it's been cool to be able to support them and really network with the bigger church.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I love this idea. Now I want to sort of get into like the logistics of things, because I know that the church comms people out there listening are like, okay, this sounds great, but it kind of might sound like a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
So how do you guys organize that? Who heads it up? Does each church like manage it independently? Do you manage it all for them? What tools do you use? Just give me some of the actual nitty-gritty details.
Oh, you're asking all the good questions. Yes, we it took a lot of research. When we were
Yeah, I'm
trying to figure
sure.
out how to when we were trying to figure out how to do this, coordinating the details, you're right. I mean, and I am always the, okay, that's a great idea, but how do we do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part. Behind every good idea is a huge list of systems that make that happen. So when we started, we looked at a bunch of different tools online, and at the time, again, it's so interesting how COVID shaped the world. I mean, I think
Mhm.
you can't ignore. At the time, there was not a lot of options out there. We stumbled on a tool called Plan Hero, um and it really just, I was like, oh, this is it, like this is the thing that's going to connect people. And really it was less about the tool and more about like, here's what it can do for us. It allowed us to sign people up for individual time slots. It allowed people uh, uh, to really just have this seamless, easy experience. Like, once I've decided that I'm committing to pray, I want that experience to be as easy as possible for that person, right?
Mhm.
And so it just gave us this really seamless experience. People could pick their time slot. And the coolest thing we loved was that it would text people reminders of their time, because I am the most forgetful person. And if you don't text me, I like the commitment is great, but if you don't remind me, I'll totally forget. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
so so those were some really big things that we were like, oh, this is so good and so helpful. And I think we have a couple hundred people praying now. So really cool. And so then as it grew to multiple churches and campuses, we kind of did a training with each of a representative from each of their churches and their campuses and said, hey, here's what we've done. Here are some best practices. Here's how we've built this out. But they've really taken it and run with it, right? So each of them are kind of praying for their own initiatives in their own local communities. They're managing their own kind of workflow, and it's been really, really cool to see them kind of branch out like on their own, and yet be still so connected to the broader church that's doing this together.
Definitely. That is amazing. And we love Plan Hero over here. It's so easy to use. And I love that, like you said, you can teach people how to do it and you don't have to like worry, like, oh, are they going to be able to figure this out for themselves? You know?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's been yeah, the platform itself has been. So, I mean, we were so impressed, honestly, and it wasn't even just the platform, the support that we got. I mean, it was so cool. I got to connect with Julie, who founded the platform and founded Plan Hero, and that's something I was so shocked to actually get an email from the person who created this. Like, that was
Right.
so impressive to me. Um, and when we gave her the idea of, here's what we want to do, here's how we want to support our church, there were certain things that they didn't even offer yet that Julie said, hey, we want to support your church. How do we help you make this work? What can we do for you? And like, that support was just, I had never experienced that. And we were so impressed by like the level of just care and support and intentionality of just, hey, like, we know your church is going through the experience of like trying to keep people connected, and we want to help you do that. Oh, it was so cool.
No, yeah, definitely. I love Julie and her team over there. They're amazing. And I know it is a little bit of a newer software. And so I love that they've done that. I know they've done that with you guys and some other clients that they've gotten to work with. And I think that's incredible. And I think that that really set them up to continue doing that. And so I know that going forward, as needs arise in churches, they will pay attention to that and continue developing like cool new like user friendly tools for churches to use. So another question I have is, are you guys using this Plan Hero tool in conjunction with a CHMS, a church management software system?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not actually integrated into our CHMS. We use
Okay.
Rock. So we use Rock RMS, which
Yeah.
is common for a lot of larger churches. However, it Rock didn't quite accomplish the functionality that we wanted around this prayer initiative. It wasn't quite as seamless,
Mhm.
and I'm a huge fan. Over the years, I used to be, how do we fit everything into one tool? How do we get it down to one tool? How do we cram all the things?
Yep.
But as I've learned, I've realized like, it's so much better to let one tool do what one tool does well,
Hmm.
and we connect and integrate as much as we can. But I was like, man, I don't want to try and stuff this really significant initiative into a tool that doesn't fit it. I'd rather give people the best experience. And there's a little bit of manual entry and pulling that data so we can reconcile it and know who's praying in our CHMS. But it has been so worth it to give people that really seamless experience.
Definitely. And that's what I was just kind of curious because I know that is a lot of people's complaint is they're like, we have a CHMS, we don't need 16 other tools on top of it. But it sounds like I know that Plan Hero is pretty flexible, and it sounds like it's a pretty seamless exchange of data there.
Yeah, it's super seamless and honestly, it requires very minimal. I mean, the platform is set up so that it requires very minimal maintenance on our end. What the work that we put into it every month, I mean, for the return that we get in prayer, the work that we actually put into it is so minimal because Julie and her team have really made it such an easy to use platform. And so, yeah, we don't notice any significant workload from that at all.
Well, that's awesome. That's super important. And I'm sure that anyone who's interested in trying out Plan Hero would be super, super glad to know that.
Yeah.
It really sounds like you guys have this down to a science. I mean, this is incredible, like logistically and just conceptually. This is just really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you have maybe like one pro tip you'd like to share for the church communicators out there. I mean, maybe it can be about this prayer initiative thing or just really anything. I know you have a lot of experience in this area and you have a very unique perspective in terms of working completely remote and digitally. So if you have anything that you would like to say to our listeners, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say, you never forget the people.
Yeah.
It's so easy. I mean, I work, but I as well as probably everyone in the church communications world right now, we work behind screens all week long, posting, streaming, editing, you name it. And it's really easy to get lost in the systems and the technical and the content and forget there are real hurting people out there who need the hope of Jesus. I mean, and that's the reality. And so for me, every time we go in and we design an initiative like this, like, hey, what does this look like? What is people's experience going to be? I always try to think people first. Like I try to put myself in the seat as a person who wants to engage and participate and grow. What does that look like for me? How would I engage? And even just remembering to pray for those people, like pray for the people on the other side of that screen. Because that's really like the ministry of this is what matters. And I think it's so easy to lose sight of that. So that would be my encouragement is the work you're doing in this digital space is making a real difference in people that you may never even see.
I could not agree more. I think that is so important and so encouraging. Drew, it has been a real pleasure getting to know you today. And if any of our listeners out there are interested in connecting with you further, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can email me on Christ the King Community Church. My name is Drew Jahng. You're welcome to email me if you have any questions. We've had several other churches reach out about starting their own prayer initiative, and I would love to connect with you if you have any questions.
Perfect. Thank you. I also want to make sure that everyone knows that if you visit planhero.com and use the promo code ChurchCom15, that you can get a discount and a free trial. You can test this tool out for yourself, maybe start your own prayer initiative. And we'll be hearing more from Plan Hero throughout the month over in the Facebook group, so be sure to check that out as well. Drew, thank you so much again for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Abby.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Church Communications Podcast. If you want to learn more, join over 30,000 church leaders in our Facebook group at churchcommunications.com/group. If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It's the most impactful way you can help us reach more church leaders and equip them to better communicate for the church. Finally, don't forget to check out our website at churchcommunications.com. Thanks for listening.